Hello everyone, and welcome back to mountmoontcg. For today's video, I'm going to take a look at some cards that I think are the best of the best from the upcoming set Journey Together. Now, Journey Together is the latest set due to be released March 28th here in the US, and we need to also keep in mind that around that time is when our standard rotation will be happening. So a lot of these silver border cards will, actually all of them are going to be staying in the format. The yellow border cards are actually going to be leaving the standard format, which is very sad. So basically it's everything that is Scarlet and Violet on. So all those cards will be legal. I think the letter in the corner, I think is G, will be the oldest legal cards. I think it's G on, if I remember correctly. But yep, it's that time. Old cards gotta go. Gotta make room for some new cards. So that is what we're here to do today. Look at the top 10 cards that I think are the best of this set. And we're going to start off with number 10, Excelgor. Now, Excelgor I put on here because I don't know if it's going to be as good as Feraligatr. Because the Feraligatr can hit for a lot more damage than Excelgor can. But Excelgor has one fun perk. So for 2 energy, it does 70 damage, and then your opponent's active Pokemon is now confused and poisoned. Switches Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. This has the added bonus of confusing and poisoning your opponent's active Pokemon. The Feraligatr just does more damage. And then, like the Feraligatr, I think this will be put in like a Walls deck. So you could put like the Milotic EX in the active spot, the Mimikyu in the active. But yeah, there's Walls out there that kind of prevents your opponent from attacking you. So if they play EX heavy deck, put up the Mimikyu, and then next turn you can just retreat the Mimikyu, put Excelgor back up, and then do damage again. Like I said, I don't know if this is going to be any good. It really depends upon if this is better than Feraligatr. I don't know if it will be. The Feraligatr just hits for a lot more damage, but the Excelgor has the chance that your opponent's active Pokemon can stay confused unless they switch. So yeah, Excelgor here at number 10. It's just got to see if it can beat Feraligatr going forward. Next up at number 9, we have Banette. Banette can be a very tricky card because of the Cursed Speech attack. Your opponent shuffles 3 cards from their hand into their deck. Now this can be, this card can go hand in hand with cards like Unfair Stamp and Iono. Because if your opponent has taken, let's just say 3 prize cards, and then you Iono them down to 3, then you used Cursed Speech, you give them basically a no-card hand. They draw 1 card for turn, and then if it's nothing good, you can just retreat Banette, and maybe do some damage with like a big, heavy-hitting Pokemon. We'll wait and see. This could be put into like a mill deck or stall deck, whatever the case may be. This seems very interesting. The fact that there's ways that you can put your opponent down to a 0-card hand and then start hitting them with a big beefy attacker, and your opponent has like maybe 2 or 3, 4 turns of not drawing any good cards, and then you've won the game by then. So maybe there's room for Banette in this format where it just prevents your opponent from playing cards from their hand because they have no cards in their hand. Very interesting. So Banette is here at number 9. Coming up next at number 8 is a Pokemon that I think could be put into some of these wall decks or into a deck on its own. We have Tyranitar. Tyranitar is a stage 2 Pokemon with the ability Daunting Gaze. While this Pokemon is in the active spot, your opponent can't play any item cards from their hand. This ability can be very huge. We all know that items are essentially the support of every single one of our decks. I would argue they are the most important cards in our decks. I don't know if I want to say the most valuable cards, but they are pretty darn important in case you haven't noticed. And the fact that if this Pokemon's in the active, your opponent can't play any item cards, We see how Badil can potentially, stall the opponent a little bit while you get your board set up. Tyranitar could go, into these wall decks, like I mentioned before, like Feraligatr, where you're attacking with the Croconaw attack with the Relicanth in play, and then you switch it, and then you can put this Tyranitar on the active, and your opponent can't play any item cards. But do remember, there is a drawback to this. They can play something like a Boss's Orders to put this Tyranitar on the bench, bring something else active, and then your opponent can start playing items again. But if they play a counter-catcher heavy deck, then they can't play the counter-catcher because of Daunting Gaze prevents them from playing the item card. Also stops Prime Catcher as well. They can't Prime Catcher something up. The only way out of this is a Boss's Orders. The second attack, Crackling Stomp for 150, discard the top 2 cards of your opponent's deck. I think that could be pretty decent. If you're preventing your opponent from, playing item cards, you could mill a couple of cards from their deck, could get rid of those Boss's Orders, could get rid of very important item cards, get rid of energy, get rid of Pokemon. It could be a very, very slow, mill deck. Potentially. I don't know. We'll wait and see. I think there's a lot of potential behind Tyranitar. And I do love some Tyranitar. But yeah. Item lock is very good. We've seen it in years past. So I think Tyranitar should be a Pokemon we should all look forward to going forward. Tyranitar here at number 8. Next up at number 7, we have Iono's Bellibolt EX. Now, I'm not expecting Iono's Bellibolt to be the Iono deck to be that great in and of itself. But I think there's a fun partner you could pair Bellibolt with. I think you could pair this up with the Raging Bolt EX. Potentially. Maybe you might not play the TMS Ogerpon anymore. Instead of playing 3 different energy types, you now play 2, because you're already running the electric energy to begin with. And let's look at what it does. Electric Streamer is the ability. As often as you like during your turn, you may attach a basic lightning energy card from your hand to one of your Iono's Pokemon, which this happens to be. The big drawback is it is a stage 1, not a basic like the Ogerpon is. But with the Ogerpon, you can only attach 1 extra energy and then draw a card, which is really good. This is attach as many electric as you have in your hand to this Pokemon. So if you discarded 4 energy with the Raging Bolt for electric energy, you can just Superior Energy Retrieval them back into your hand and then just attach them to the Bellibolt. I don't know how well this will be in a Raging Bolt deck. Again, we'll have to wait and see. I think the Raging Bolt players are still playing it with the Ogerpon, so maybe nobody's really tested this out. But I think the fact that it can attach a lot more energy to this Pokemon and then just discard it and then you just Superior Energy Retrieval them back is very, very powerful. And Raging Bolt it might be one of the stronger decks moving forward. We'll wait and see. I have a lot of faith in Raging Bolt, love Raging Bolt, but I think the potential that this can attach a whole bunch of energy and you don't have to deal with those grass energy. You can just get all your electric from the deck with your earthen vessels and things like that and just attach them to Bellibolt. Seems like a pretty good time. Only problem is you might not be able to really attack with Raging Bolt turn 1, going second. Could be a little harder to do. But I digress. This seems very interesting. So Iono's Bellibolt EX is here at number 7. Next up at number 6, we have Blaziken EX. Now, I want to clear something up here a little bit. When I did the Prismatic Evolutions, the last top 10 list we did, I had Blaziken on that list as well. It turns out that they decided to hold on to Blaziken EX for a little bit and then decided to put it in this list. So I do apologize. Sometimes I do lists a little bit in advance, and we don't know for sure if a card is going to be in that set or cut. We have to make our best guess. I do apologize about that, but Blaziken, I don't want to say 100%, but it should be in this set. So, hopefully. Blaziken EX has Overflowing Spirit as the ability. Once during your turn, you may attach a basic energy card from your discard pile to one of your Pokemon. So if you have a Pokemon that you have a hard time getting up and running, you could put Blaziken EX in the deck, like that Excelgor I talked about a little bit ago. Whereas if you didn't know how to get the energy into play, well, now you can attach per turn and then use Overflowing Spirit to put an energy from the discard to one of your Pokemon. It could be your active Pokemon, it could be a benched Pokemon. Yeah, any Pokemon that you have in play. But like I said, the energy's got to be in the discard pile, but we have things like Earthen Vessel to get rid of energy if we need to. No more Radiant Greninja, unfortunately, because of rotation. This card would have been fun with Greninja, not gonna lie. Kind of disappointed about that, but c'est la vie. 2 energy, 200 damage, can't attack next turn, not the greatest. Really only here for the ability, and people love Blaziken. So, of course, I think people are going to pick up Blaziken and make a lot of cool, fun decks with it. So, we'll see where Blaziken heads off. I don't know what the great partner would be for Blaziken at this moment, but we'll have to wait and see. Blaziken is here at number 6. And then next up at number 5, we have Mamoswine EX. I don't know how competitive Mamoswine will be, but it is a very fun card. It's got Mammoth Carry. Once during your turn, you may search your deck for a Pokemon, reveal it, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. And then for 2 Fighting Energy, Rumbling March, 180 plus. This attack does 40 more damage for each Stage 2 Pokemon on your bench. So, of course, we're going to be building a very heavy Stage 2 deck with Mamoswine. So, the other Stage 2 Pokemon that we could pair with this is the Garganacl, which can attach a energy from the discard to one of your Pokemon and then heal 30 damage from that Pokemon. There's also the Pidgeot EX that we still have in format, which can find any card from your deck and put it into your hand. So there's a fun combination here where you could Mammoth Carry for the Pidgeot EX, and then Rare Candy into the Pidgeot EX, and then search for another card. There's a whole lot of searching that we can do with this Mamoswine EX deck, and I'm all for it. This is a big beefy Pokemon for 340 HP. The weakness to grass could be a little bit weird because we still have Ogerpon in the format. Yeah. I think this could be a very fun deck. It did see some play in Japan with the what do they call it over there? The league, not the league challenge. They have like the really big tournaments that go on once in a while. I can't remember what they call it, but I did see a Mamoswine deck and it looked very, very fun. So we got Mamoswine here at number 5. Number 4, we have Dunsparce EX. I originally didn't have this card on the list, but then I actually thought about it and realized, oh, this can hit for some big damage against certain decks. Because the first attack, Adversity Tail, does 60 damage for each of your opponent's Pokemon EX. So if you're playing against a very Pokemon EX heavy deck, like Raging Bolt EX, and they have, 6 Pokemon EX in play, 6 times 60. That's a little bit of damage. What is that? 360, right? I can do math, right? 60, 120, 240, yeah. Okay, 360. If they have a full bench and an active of EXs, 360, 300, for 1 energy. And I think this is gonna be, really, really good going forward. I think Dunsparce, the non-EX, the one where it can run into the deck and draw 3 cards, I think that's going to see some play. We don't have the barrel anymore, and people are going to be looking for really, really good, consistent draw support. So the Dunsparce, I think, will pair very nicely with this Dunsparce EX. So I think this will be like a one-of in some of those decks, just to be like, oh, you're playing a lot of EXs? Well, I just knock you all out. Because I can. And that will teach you for playing all of these EX Pokemon. So, just for the sheer fact that this can just one-shot anything if your opponent has so many EXs, this looks really fun. So Dunsparce will be here at number 4. And before we get to number 3, 2, and 1, I do want to make something very clear when doing my top 10 list. We all kind of know the kind of, I don't want to say mechanic, but we all kind of know what they were going for with this set, these partner Pokemon. So we saw with the Iono's Belly Bolt earlier. So it might be like, did they bring back trainers Pokemon? And they did. They brought back, they brought trainers Pokemon back. They brought, there's Iono, and there's 3 others that we're going to talk about here in a second. But I want you to keep this in mind. There are a lot of cards in this set that only deal with certain trainers Pokemon. So it makes it a little harder to do a top 10 list, because you'll have like 5 cards dedicated to Iono and her cards, and 5 or 6 cards dedicated to this trainer and their Pokemon, and this trainer and their Pokemon. So if you don't see a certain trainer or something that's not on this list, keep that in mind. I will mention them very briefly, at least try to here in a little bit. Because it's really hard to pick. I tried to pick at least one of those cards, and I kind of went with like the main attacker or one of the mains of that deck. It doesn't mean another big component of that deck is not good. I just tried to keep it down to 1 entry per list. Think of them as honorable mentions if you really want to. So, going forward, at number 3, we have N's Zoroark EX. And I'm very excited for this. For those of you that played in the Sun and Moon era and loved Zoroark GX, you might love this card. It's got Trade. Trade Zoroark is back, everybody. So, what does Trade? Discard a card from your hand to use this ability and draw 2 cards. Yep. Trade is back, so if you have 4 Zoroark EX in play, discard 4 cards, draw 8. It's as simple as that, ladies and gentlemen. The attack, Night Joker for 2 Darkness Energy. Choose one of your benched Ends Pokemon's attacks and use it as this attack. So, before we move on, we have to look at some other Ends Pokemon or Ends support. Why Zoroark, End Zoroark might be really, really good. So let's go off that for a little bit. Okay, a card you can copy is this Ends Reshiram here with Powerful Rage. Attack does 20 damage for each of your damage counter on this Pokemon. So if your End Zoroark is, a couple of damage counters away from being knocked out, so say if there's 260 damage on End's Zoroark because it's 270, you essentially double that, and then you're hitting 520? Yeah, you're hitting 520 damage, so as long as they do like 200 damage too, you're not knocking anything out. Because it doubles whatever damage counters on that Pokemon and then just returns it ×2, which is pretty cool. You can also, if you don't have a lot of damage counters, you can use Virtuous Flame for 170. Because remember, we have to go back here. Copy any of your benched Ends Pokemon's attacks. You don't have to have the necessary energy, so do keep that in mind. Any Ends Pokemon on the bench. So that's going to be the main partner. I also want to point out this Ends Darmanitan here. You could use a Backdraft, 30 damage for each energy card in your opponent's discard pile. So if you're going against like those Cerulege decks, or is it Armor Rouge? No, it's Cerulege. That likes to have a lot of energy in the discard pile. You just basically one-shot them. But Ends Darmanitan does have a Darmanicannon, which is a great name for an attack. Discard all energy from this Pokemon. This attack does 90 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. Could be really good to knock out like 2 small basic Pokemon, like 2 Ralts, something like that. 2 Darumakas, 2 Zoruas that your opponent has. Zora can use this attack, or you can just use this with Ends Darmanitan as well. I think we still have that not triple acceleration energy. That the one with the 3 for Rainbow and for Evolved Pokemon. I think you can use that for this. I don't think it only applies to stage 2s. I think we still have that. So you can attach that as one and then discard it and then attach another one and then discard it. So you don't have to attach 3 different energies to it. You can just attach the... God, what is that called? I'm sure Chris will put it up over here somewhere. If not, go look it up. I can't remember names of things until I actually go and I look it up and I'm like, oh, that's what it's called. So yeah, we have Ends Darmanitan. We also have... There's some other Ends Pokemon, Ends stuff we'll talk about. We have Ends Castle. Each Ends Pokemon in play, both yours and your opponents, has no retreat cost, which is pretty good. We also have Ends PP Up, which is attach a basic energy card from your discard pile to one of your benched Ends Pokemon. So Dark Patch will be leaving the format, but that's okay, because we still have Ends PP Up, so we can attach that discarded Darkness Energy that we used to trade for. We traded away that, that Darkness Energy put in the discard pile, then use Ends PP Up to attach it to a benched Ends Pokemon, in this case, a Ends Zoroark. So pretty darn good, and it's just any basic energy card. There you go. And I think that's really it for the Ends Pokemon. I think that's really it. But yeah, just due to the fact that Ends Zoroark does have that really, really good draw support, I can make this Pokemon and the whole deck in itself really, really good. So we put the Ends Zoroark here at number 3. Next up at number 2, we have Lily's Clefairy EX. The ability on Lily's Clefairy EX. The weakness of each of your opponent's Dragon Pokemon is now Psychic. This is very important because Dragon Pokemon like Dragapult EX, Raging Bolt EX have no weakness. So now Lily's Clefairy says, oh no, you have Psychic weakness now. And that can be very, very important, because if your Dragon Pokemon have a weakness, that means if you're playing like a Psychic deck, like a Gardevoir deck, that means you can easily knock out like Dragapult and Raging Bolt. So it makes them easier to beat. And also Lily's Clefairy does have the attack Full Moon Rondo, 20 plus, 20 more damage for each benched Pokemon, both yours and your opponents. So there's ways, so now those Dragon Pokemon are now weak to Lily's Clefairy EX, and if you get 2 energy onto the Lily's Clefairy EX, you can one-shot them. You don't need a whole lot of, Pokemon on the bench. You really just need Dragapult is 320, if I'm not mistaken. So you need to do 160. So that's like 7 technically on the bench, plus the 20 that you're already using to knock out. So 7 Pokemon on the bench, which isn't that hard. But the downside is you can't control your opponent's bench, really. You can control your bench. So if you have a full bench of 5, they just need to bench 2 Pokemon, and you're basically one-shotting these Dragapult because of weakness now with Lily's Clefairy. And not to mention, we've had Pokemon like, the Raikou, V, we've had, Palkia, V-Star that hit for a lot more damage if there's Pokemon on the bench, both yours and your opponents. So I think the fact that this could, I don't want to say get rid of Dragapult from the format. I think this Pokemon that helps turn that deck down a little bit from being, the best deck in format, I think is pretty darn good. As a Bolt player, I hate this, but, I gotta put respect on it. Lily's Clefairy is really good. Lily's Clefairy is here at number 2. And last but not least, in at number 1, the card that I think is the best card in Journey Together is Hops Zacian EX. And I will tell you why. Just due to the fact that you can build up a whole lot of you can build this thing up to do a whole lot of damage. So the first attack, Close Cleave, does 30, and the attack does 30 damage to one of your opponent's benched Pokemon. So that doesn't seem very good, right? Well, that's what you would be a little bit wrong. Because Hop has a lot of help. And let's go look. So, one of the big Pokemon in this set is Hop Snorlax. Hop Snorlax has Big Belly. The attacks of your Hop's Pokemon do 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. The effect of Big Belly doesn't stack. Which, if it did stack, this would be really, really good. But I digress. So it does 30 more damage. Okay. So you might be thinking, oh, 60 damage, that's it? That's it? 30 more damage? Well, you'd be wrong. There's also Hop's Choice Band. The Hop's Pokemon this card is attached to uses an attack. That attack costs 1 colorless energy less and does 30 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. Okay, sounds pretty good. Now we're doing 90 damage. And let's also mention the attack costs 1 colorless less. It's only 1 colorless. So for a free attack, you're doing 30 with the attack, you're doing 60 with the Snorlax, you're doing 90 with the Hop's Choice Belt. Is there anything else? Well, there's also... There is Postwick. The attack of Hop's Pokemon, both yours and your opponent's, do 30 more damage to the opponent's active Pokemon. We got a 3rd damage modifier. So now we're hitting for 120 for no energy. That does seem pretty darn good. We can go one step further. Let's look at Hop's second attack. So, there's Brave Slash. Does 240. During your next turn, this Pokemon can't use Brave Slash. That stinks, but whatever. We still have cards like, Archaludon EX, where you can, when you evolve it, you get 2 metal energy from the discard pile, attach it to your metal Pokemon. So you can put 2 onto Hop Zacian EX. You can attach per turn. You can Hop's Choice Band the Zacian to get rid of that 1 pesky colorless energy. You can have the Snorlax in play, the Stadium in play. And you're hitting for 330. Which is a little bit ridiculous for 3 energy. Because remember, we have the Snorlax, we have the Stadium, we have the Hop's Choice Band. We got those 3 damage modifiers that do 90 more damage. So we're doing 330. That should be enough to knock out pretty much anything in the format. So if you really needed to, Hop Zacian can one-shot anything. And then for anything else that's, you don't need to one-shot, we have Close Cleave. You can knock out some pesky, little Ralts or any other, like maybe stage 1 on your opponent's bench. I think this is a very versatile card. I debated if the Lily's Clefairy was better than this, but I'm like, I don't know. The Hop Zacian could be really, really good. The only drawbacks are these wall decks that are going to be popping up everywhere. I think that's kind of the format we're moving into with these wall decks, but we still have bosses orders and stuff, so you can hopefully, hit something on the bench, one-shot it, and it's all well and good. We're also going to keep in mind here, too, we do have, like, Hop's Cramorant. So we have, for 1 energy, it's Fickle Spit, does 120, but if your opponent doesn't have exactly 3 or 4 prize cards remaining, the attack does nothing, which could be, a little annoying that this is only good for the mid-game, but it's something to help you out in case you can't use the Zacian to attack. There's also the Hop's Dubwall. Challenge Horn. When you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve one of your Pokemon during your turn, you may switch in one of your opponent's bench Pokemon to the active spot. If it wasn't for my rule that, like I said a little bit earlier, I tried to keep it to, the hops, the trainers Pokemon and everything that, that might go into that deck. I tried to keep in the entry with the best card. This could have had a spot on its own. I think it's really good. The effect it's a boss's orders on an evolving Pokemon. Really darn good. But we gotta stick to the rule. One entry per, one Pokemon card per entry. And I think I got it right with, saying the Hopzashi EX is potentially going to be the best card of the set. But you don't have to agree with me. Maybe you think the Lily's Clefairy is the best card of the set. Or maybe you think Mamoswine is the best card of the set. Or Tyranitar. You know what? It's all just speculation at this point for what we think is going to be good going forward, what's not going to be good going forward. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. It happens. But I want to know. I want to know what your guys' top 10 lists are. Leave them down in the comments section below. And do keep in mind that the set is to be released March 28th, but pre-releases are going to be happening very soon, if not this weekend. I don't know when this video is coming out. So go to some pre-releases, get some product early, and go play in some fun pre-release tournaments. I know I will be. So yeah, and go get yourself the set when it releases March 28th, and do keep in mind that around this time is when rotation will be happening. Those old cards are going to be gone, so start preparing to build new decks going forward. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. Make sure you hit that like button, comment, share, subscribe, and be sure to join us for some more awesome perks right here on Mount Moon TCG.